Good evening. It is 6 o'clock. That's the magical hour. We're going to go ahead and get started, and we're probably waiting for some other council people to come in. And so at this time, would you call a roll, please?
Councilmember Cochran, absent. Councilmember Gonzalez, absent. Councilmember Hamrick, absent. Councilmember Jaquez,
Yay, I'm here.
Councilmember Meisner,
Sure.
Councilmember Turner, absent. Mayor Pro Tem Smith, absent. Mayor Troutman.
Here. Well, let's get going, and we would have Liesl.
Can I move for dismissal?
You can try, but you will not get a second. We can't vote.
Frank will second it.
Liesl Hammond is the Executive Director of the Golden Age, and you've been in your position about a year. And I want to thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you.
Liesl is a retired major
Yes,
from the United States Army,
thank you.
so thank you for that.
Yes.
So would you just go right ahead? You handed out a paper here. And,
I did. I provided you a brief read ahead, just to kind of keep you on track with what I'm going to say. As the mayor stated, good evening. My name is Liesl Hammond. I'm the Executive Director of the Golden Age Center. I took over last year, November 26th, so about to have a one-year anniversary. So, real quick, I just wanted to give you an overview of what the Golden Age Center is. As you're aware, as we've discussed in the past, it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization incorporated in 1961. The Golden Age Center, or the Canyon City Golden Age Council Incorporated, which is actually the legal name, has 3 community service programs: a senior activity center, a transportation program, and a nutrition program. And they're all housed within the center on Main Street here in Canyon City. We had a wonderful 2019, thanks to you. You gave us a financial donation as well as the donation of a minivan. So both have been extremely, invaluable to us. So we appreciate it. I'm here, of course, to ask for the same type of donation for 2020, if it's in your means to do that. And of course, the vehicles, when you finish with them, the vehicles are a huge blessing to us. As we discussed last year, we expanded our service to veterans, getting them to the VA Medical Center. I was hesitant to advertise our out-of-town transportation opportunities to the public because I didn't want to overwhelm the organization. However, in your read ahead, I've provided an advertisement that we will be providing to the community, which expands our service or adds to the service that we're already providing by increasing our service to the public, to medical appointments, doctors and dentists in Pueblo and Colorado Springs. So that's the plan for 2020, to utilize our vehicles with 2 or 3 passengers going out of town each day instead of just one. Combining the trips as much as we can, seeking out volunteer drivers to support that transportation to out-of-town medical appointments, which is extremely difficult for many people in our community to get to those doctor appointments in Pueblo and Colorado Springs. Some 2020 expenses have been included in your read ahead. Our bathrooms are not fully handicapped accessible at the center, so we are submitting a grant request to the Gates Family Foundation to do an upgrade to our bathrooms. We also need a plumbing upgrade. As you know, some of the downtown buildings, the plumbing is old, and we've had significant problems, so that will also be added within the grant. We have to replace the roof, $22,000. The ceiling replacement. The roof has been leaking for years, so there's extensive water damage to the ceiling of the Golden Age Center, so that's on the agenda for this year as well. Our furnace as well is old. Half of the building is extremely poorly heated. And then our computers. Our computers are quite outdated and quite slow. So those are in the plans for 2020. And as I stated, we are requesting a remodeling grant from the Gates Family Foundation in order to assist in these upgrades to the center. Again, general operating funds, we discussed that in-depthly when I came and spoke with you last year, or earlier this year. The general operating funds that you provided provide support to all 3 programs within the Golden Age Center: the transportation program, housing, the nutrition program, as well as the senior center activities. And our numbers, as you can see, are increasing. Fremont County Transit, January to December of 2018, 9,556 trips. January to September of 2019, we've already exceeded our 2018 number with 10,272 trips. Also, with the financial contribution that you gave to us last year, we purchased a minivan with a lift and added that to our fleet of vehicles. Additional lift capability, of course, is extremely valuable in this community to people who are wheelchair-bound. And then we also increased our paid employees by 3 drivers, and we continue to utilize our volunteers. And then, as I stated, I just provided an example. We're going to work to increase our transportation availability to members of the community who need to go out of town to Pueblo and Colorado Springs for medical appointments. So that will be part of 2020, adding more each day to the clients who travel for medical care. And then again, the nutrition program, nothing has changed with that. We continue to provide 60 to 100 meals a day through a grant from the Area Agency on Aging. And that's all I have, pending your questions.
Well, thank you. I think it's well covered. Now, your trips, you schedule them all out of your facility there, but they do pick up at doors, or?
Exactly, that is correct. Yes, we ask for 24 to 48 hours advance notice for in-town and 5 working days advance notice for out-of-town trips. People call and schedule them, and either the paid driver or the volunteer driver picks them up at their door, takes them to their appointment, and then waits for them to finish and then brings them back home.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Meisner?
Ryan, where's this coming out of the budget?
I've asked Tammy to see if we have this line item budgeted in the current 2020 budget. It might be something we'll have to add back in and downgrade something else or cut back somewhere else, depending on council's discretion.
Okay.
Take that 100,000 from the park.
You're still grinding on that, aren't you?
Hey.
Okay. Anyone else?
How's the van that we donated working?
Excellent, thank you very much. We've appreciated it. It's been great to us, so thank you.
If we had any others come out, would you consider those?
Absolutely, we would be very appreciative. The out-of-town vehicles, that's really our greatest challenge. We seem to always have enough drivers because I have people who want to volunteer to drive and I don't have enough vehicles. So it's hard to make someone wait for someone else. If someone has a 10 a.m. appointment in Pueblo, I don't want to combine them with someone who has a 2 p.m. appointment in Pueblo because that's a long wait for both clients. So I would prefer to have 2 drivers and 2 vehicles that can cover those appointments, and oftentimes we do not have enough vehicles, so making those trips would be
Has the
beneficial.
county donated any types of vehicles? Have you went to the county for donation for vehicles?
I have not received vehicles from the county. I did receive a financial contribution, but I did not receive vehicles. So, and I have talked to them about that, however, I'll re-engage with them.
Isn't that here? Aren't they doing something with a roof? Did they? Or is that somebody else's roof?
The Golden Age Center?
Yeah.
We are, yes, we have to replace the roof. It's
Yeah.
been leaking for many years.
The county?
Oh, I don't know about the county.
I think that was the
Oh, yes, I did receive some money toward the roof from the county. That is correct.
Last year?
Yes, we will be using it. We used it to repair the roof, and now we're using it to replace the roof before winter arrives. It doesn't meet the entire 22,000, though, I can tell you that.
Okay. Any questions?
Ask again. No.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much. I
Lisa.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
How do you say her name?
Pardon? Lisa.
Lisa.
L-E-S-L. Okay, now to the more exciting portion of the exciting portion of it. Patrick, we're going to go ahead and talk about Title 16 revisions.
I'll do my best not to bore you too much. I'll
Well,
see what I can do. I can't
I-
promise it, but
I think this is exciting stuff,
Can I
yeah.
ask a precursor question?
Precursor, yes, you may.
So, in your estimation, how significant of changes are we talking about? Minor, major, significant? I mean, where are we at? What have we accomplished so far?
well, for the changes that are in your agenda packet this evening, I would say that about 80% of the document, these are minor changes, minor little tweaks to definitions and things, but there are two significant changes that we want to make sure council is aware of. The first has to do with minor subdivisions. Right now, minor subdivisions, they come with this "or" clause associated with what qualifies as a minor subdivision. And the way it works is either it's a piece of ground that is 10 acres or less, or it's proposing to create 5 or fewer lots. That should be both, either 10 acres and fewer than 5 lots being created. But there's another clause within there that says anything which doesn't qualify as either a subdivision exemption or a major subdivision can be processed as a minor subdivision. And if you think about that, that means just about anything could be a minor subdivision. So we're trying to clarify that by removing that ambiguity out of the requirement. Catherine, I think you may have some additional comments on that.
Yeah, so Patrick's described what is currently listed as option 1, and that's the 10 acres, 5 lots, and option 2, which is this like catch-all. And to be perfectly honest, it's one of those where anything could fit into it or nothing at all. I mean, the wording is almost, it's very difficult for me to interpret that and guide the city in what that means. One additional criteria in that option 1, that 5 lots, 10 acres, is that it has to be property previously platted within the city, which is extremely limiting. So if you own a parcel of property that's never been platted in the city, you just have a meets and bounds, and you want to create a minor sub, you don't qualify for it under here, under option 1, because it hasn't been previously platted in the city. And I don't think that's what the city intended, is my guess. I'm not sure why such a restrictive provision would have been in there, but nonetheless, that's how it reads now. And so we've also eliminated that requirement.
The other significant change that's being put in here falls under the category of subdivision and development agreements. This is an existing section, it's in there now, but the changes that we've made clarify what improvements will trigger the need for a subdivision or development agreement to make sure that it isn't universally applied to every subdivision that we have. And the intent is, okay, this is only going to happen when we've got major public improvements like new streets, new storm sewer systems that the city is ultimately going to own and maintain, those kinds of things. Private improvements are not going to be the subject of a development agreement. I don't think they should be the subject of a development agreement.
And we've clarified the approving authority on the development agreements. It will be the city administrator as opposed to, or zoning administrator as it's sometimes referred to in here, so that's the same person, instead of the engineer, which is how it's set up now.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
wait, I'm sorry, sir.
No, go ahead, go ahead. Are you thinking or what?
Well, I guess I'll wait. That
Well-
whole process, we got to change something.
Well, that's and Patrick, I appreciate it, and just while we're sitting there talking amongst us, I'm not new to this, I've done them both here and in another state. Really? I mean, this is 90-some pages long, 98, and it's great, it's got a lot of stuff. Could it be boiled down to, no human that doesn't do this is gonna understand this. What we're trying to do, what Jim's trying to say, and it's not any, let's just talk about it. Could this be boiled down to 4 simple sheets? This is almost incomprehensible, frankly, and I've done them. It's not your fault, it's not mine, that's the way it is. Why on earth is it that way? This will do 2 things. It'll stop people even contemplating it for one thing, which is what we don't want, and it'll cost the residents more money. We're doing one in the county right now. They haven't even done anything, and they've got $20,000 invested on trying to figure out what on earth they're doing. You know that, and that's just wrong. It's like an insurance policy, because we're going through it now, because we're signing up for next year for errors and omissions and all that stuff. And I told him, make it so I understand it, because I'm writing the check. It's honest to God, it's almost incomprehensible. I have gone through here, and I've lined out, and I've done red, and I've circled and everything, and I'm wondering, what on earth? Why is the city wanting to be so restrictive for stuff? Do we not want to have the development? Do we not want to be a net water seller? Do we not want to take care of people? I wonder about that. It's crafted well, but it's so darn complicated, and you're going to have to hire someone. It's going to cost you a ton of money, which will go on the front end of the cost of the subdivision before you even get to approval. I'm telling you, there's got to be a better way. They're not getting away with anything, but we still, look, and I know Patrick, and I'm just an old man, grumpy old man at times, but let me point at some things that bother me. And I know you've got something to say, but I only got 70-some days left, so give me a break. Please. We have, and I understand all the definitions, but here, it like says, subsequent amendments to these regulations adopted by the city, and G now, process vesting. Any subsequent amendments to these regulations adopted by the city that become effective after the date of the certification of completed there shall not apply to applications pending approval. This is one sentence. At the time of the application of the changes, unless the city and the applicant agree in writing to follow the revised process or the application has been abandoned. What?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to interrupt, but could you reference a page so we can
I'm going
follow
to
along
reference
with you?
page 5.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Frank. I should do that.
Yep.
Okay, that's one thing. And then we talk about, on page 7, and I'm not newcomer to this stuff. It says here, until such time as the city has adopted as part of the land use code a separate article entitled Community Design Principles and Development Standards, but yet we talk about it has to be according to development standards. What on earth does that mean? I mean, who says what? Here it is over here. Covenants and protected covenants, we don't get involved in that, or do we? Now we have a problem in Gold Canyon, and the city says, we've got nothing to do with your covenants. Do we or don't we? It shouldn't be in there. Design standards, and it goes on. And I know this is probably amalgamation of other towns and everything, but I just beg the conclusion that, and I know there's other things in here, and I'm not picking on anybody, but it just is overwhelming, and I've sat for hours going through this, and I've done them, and there's got to be a simpler way. What on earth does the government think everybody's a bad guy, and we have to be so darn restrictive for something? I think so. Sketch plan purposes. Really? I think what we should do as a council is let these guys off, and we're going to sit here and go through it and get rid of stuff. I honestly think you can have a couple pages of definitions. I got that. But then 3 to 4, maybe no more than 8 pages of a condensation said this is how it's done. I'm not picking on it. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it troubles me. This stuff, read it. If you're not, read your insurance policy. This is like trying to read someone's insurance policy. It's not simple. Some of it is redundant. Some of it is just, I can't conclude much from it. And I'm trying to look for some of the stuff that maybe we're just wasting each other's time. I don't know. I get all the red lines and everything. And I know there's probably legal background for it. It says here on page intent. Really?
Page what?
It says intent. It says on here, number 12, enduring compliance with the zoning regulations, because it said ordinance regulations, the city comprehensive plan and the community design principles. Well, we clearly said we don't have those, and development standards. What on earth is that? Regulating the other matters that the city council may deem necessary in order to protect the best interests of the public. Who determines that? Encouraging new subdivision development to relate to the city's historic development pattern. I've been here 45 years. What is that historic development pattern? Old buildings that look downtown? I don't get that. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Patrick, I realize and recognize that this is not your doing. So, in whatever conversations I have and comments the mayor's had, I would hope that you don't take those as that you created this monster. Realistically and honestly, what I would like is for you to take this and whack it up so that the end result is, you can reasonably accomplish the end result without all the mud. And I have no clue how to do that, but that's where I think that I think maybe that's your asset to this whole process, is for you to look at what we're trying to get in terms of the most streamlined process possible, but still come with an outcome. I mean, I think we've got, in our rules and regulations, we try to cover every possible scenario that's there, which I understand, and the attorney's probably shaking her head over there saying, we can't be doing this, but it seems like we cover every possible scenario that could ever happen. So you've got to go through all those scenarios in order to determine whether you can or can't do something. I mean, how simple can you get this process, do you think? I know that's a loaded question, but
I hesitate to give an answer because I think I need to get some more information about exactly what sort of goals you have in mind to know whether or not the goals are attainable.
I want to make it as easy as possible for a contractor to walk into this city and to make a development or to make an improvement. That's the primary objective, but then we still have some legal responsibilities to make for sure that we're doing it right. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense, yes. And
Now, I don't know how you accomplish that.
I mean, are you wanting me to remove certain types of subdivision applications
Well-
in order to just decrease the bulk of the document, or?
Well, I think from my perspective is when I look back even at codes, apparently we have the option of selecting what codes we want to enforce, right? I'm just
Talking
sticking-
building code?
Right, and I'm not trying to get off subject, right?
Yeah, When we go to adopt the 2018 building code, we can look at, certain sections
Right.
that we want to pull out.
So, we could take the whole list of codes, or we could say, no, we want that, and that. That's all we're going to enforce, because that's what we believe is important.
Well, that's not quite accurate.
I don't know, that's what I'm asking.
I'm sorry. So I'll take the building code example. This is not a building code. okay?
Right, I
So-
understand.
But when you adopt a building code, the portions that you don't want, you actually delete them from the building code.
Okay.
So I think there's a bigger issue here, and I've heard this over the last couple of years, and it's not just with this title, it's also with 17. And I apologize for my own ignorance as to how these were created. I just wasn't here, I don't know. But I'm not sure the city's ever undertaken a comprehensive overview, 30,000 foot, 20,000 foot, 10,000 foot, 5,000 foot land use review, comprehensive, what do we want for the city of Canyon City? Like you're talking about processes, but even in the zoning, does the zoning make sense? Is it moving towards something we want? Is it too complicated? Is it missing something? And to my knowledge, you haven't undertaken that probably in the last 10 years, and you're overdue for that process. But that process is intensive, and it will be long. It will probably be 2 years. And council needs to be committed to that process. I think staff is willing to undertake what you tell us, but we've never asked for, to be frank, and never gotten that direction. And I don't think we've really had that direct conversation about modeling these for Canyon. This was the model land use code that Canyon just adopted. I'm not even sure how many amendments were made when that happened. And now both Title 17 and Title 16 are Frankensteins. I mean, they are, because we come in here and we do these little tweaks because we're trying to make one thing easier. But then, you're right, it's hard to read it and not notice 50 other things you want to change in the process. And we try to be exacting when we bring you changes because we don't want to bring you, we don't have authority to, we don't, not authority, but we don't have your blessing to bring you a huge, massive red line and be like, here, we went crazy. And so I think that's a conversation that council needs to have.
And if I may expand on that, you remember that earlier this year, and actually beginning late last year, we undertook to completely rehabilitate all of Title VIII as it pertained to nuisances. We had begun referring to it as our junk drawer title. We could do the same thing here, but that's going to be a long and involved process. And if we're going to do that, we need to know that we have council's commitment to the duration.
Well, let's back up to Title VIII. I mean, we're not, we got to get off subject a little bit to get back where we're at. Part of the problem with Title VIII is we were trying, I thought, don't take this wrong, and maybe this is the culture that we have created, that as we reviewed Title VIII, we weren't taking things out.
Yes,
We were putting things in.
We were doing both, in fact.
We removed an entire chapter of your code as part
Yeah,
of that
but you put it
process.
somewhere else.
No, it was completely removed. Yep.
I mean, that's what we need, is we need to remove entire chapters that an individual in their professional opinion, which is you, not me, says, we don't need that to accomplish safe and reasonable development. And I don't know what some of those things are, but because you know this whole process so much better than I do, and he knows it better, some of you people can very quickly look at this and start just throwing pages out saying, this is junk. Now, relative to commitment, I think the tone that I'm hearing in the polls is the new council, this will be a priority. That they will want building and zoning simplified as much as possible. And if that's one page where we can do it and everybody's comfortable with it, that's what we need is one page.
Well, you're never going to get a one-page.
I realize that.
But I think what we need to do here, based on Patrick's statement he made a while ago, is let Patrick get what he has now and what we've said, because what he's saying is he can come back with something, but when he comes back with something, he's got to have the total commitment of the council to stick with it. So in other words, he may come back and say, we can look at this, but my vision to accomplish what you folks are looking at is going to take maybe 6 months to a year. And there's where we come into play. If he comes back and says something like that, then we have to be committed to be willing to stay with it on the long road. And we can't keep coming and saying, well, do this tomorrow, do this next week. And that's what I'm suggesting is let him look at what we got here, what we've said, and have him come back at another time and said, taking into consideration everything that you folks have said, everything that I've heard, not only from you, but from the builders and everybody else. We can possibly develop something that's going to work, but I need your total commitment to stay with it because I think it's going to take us a half a year, whatever the case may be. And then we as council have got to say, okay, we're going to stand behind you. You go ahead now and do your job.
I'd agree with that, but Patrick would need help. I think we should fund that help. Maybe not, I don't know.
And don't take this wrong. I mean, no, seriously, if we have to take the 100,000 from the park to accomplish this, that 100,000 will accomplish untold advantages versus that park. So in
Right.
terms of what the mayor's saying, if we need to allocate monies to support him,
Absolutely, and I think, this all comes into, the idea of comprehensive planning and land use planning, and, we have some of that money, we're ready to start that project next year, and that's, that's part of the reason why comprehensive planning is so important. When you have a code like this that has been cobbled together over decades, this is what you get left with, and we need, it's almost like, rate increases. If you kick it down the road and keep kicking it down the road, these are the problems you end up with. And I think that this is a great opportunity, since we have a willing council and potentially a new elected board that is willing as well to take this project on.
I'd like to jump in here a little bit, and excuse me for being late. I was at the Sister City fundraiser. I walked in the door at 5 o'clock, and I thought, I have plenty of time, and the service was a little bit slow. But
It's Russia.
yeah, right. Good grief. I think kind of what we're talking about here, and what we're doing is continuing the discussion. I mean, but kind of what we're talking about here is development for dummies. I mean, if that might be a starting place to build off of.
No, I'm saying that, but Bragg is a heck of a pro here. I mean,
Yeah, oh,
what we got is,
absolutely.
thank you. He needs help. He has other things to do, but if we're committed to this,
Gotcha, I understand,
then we
right?
got to say, all right, here,
but-
I think, you can turn it down if you'd
So-
like,
so-
Patrick, anytime.
Before we get to the discussion
go
of
ahead.
resources,
Go ahead.
let's continue this part here a
All
little
right.
bit first. But I think that what we need is development for dummies. Okay?
I recognize that as one of the first things I saw shortly after I started. And so one of the focuses I had was in creating these development assistance packets that I've been populating the shelves upstairs in the lobby with, in an effort to break down the process to say, it's a check mark. Either you need to include this or you don't need to include this. Something like that.
Yeah,
And I think I understand when you say development for dummies, I hesitate to use the word dummies, but what you clearly want is a subdivision and perhaps a zoning code that are more user-friendly, let's say, that are easy to read, easy to interpret, easy to see, well, I qualify for this or I don't qualify for this, without having to consult some paid consultant.
correct, yes. And the part of where I'm coming from is that, and I may not understand this correctly, okay? And so you have to take that into account. But it seems to me that if you're going to develop something, you've really got 3 stages you're going through. You've got planning, you have design, and you have construction. And right now, it seems to me that those concepts, and I don't know that it has ever happened in the commercial world, but I think it's at least theoretically possible that you could have 3 different independent commercial entities that undertake each one of those phases: planning, design, and construction. And that if you're just in a planning stage for a development, your requirements are a lot different than if you intend to go the whole 9 yards and all the way through construction and sales as a single commercial entity. And so maybe using that as an idea, an approach, maybe that gets us somewhere or maybe not, I'm not sure. But I'm here to say, yes, we need to make things more simple. I'm not sophisticated enough to know really what that means. I mean, you probably are thinking of all the horror stories perhaps that you've heard or encountered over the years in developments of how things can go wrong. And a lot of times that's why you end up with cobbled together stuff as you're trying to fix the last problem.
Well, go ahead, Mr. Meisner.
Well, 2 things. One, considering where we're trying to go, that if you've got recommendations in Title 16 right now, based on our relationship, I'm saying if you think they're good, do them, because we got bigger goals to accomplish than what appears to be, for the most part, simple red lines here, simple changes. Get that. If you think that's worthy, do it. Secondly, I think we just need to take this and throw it away. You need to look at communities that are successful in development and zoning and see what they have. I mean, there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with starting completely over. Don't reinvent the wheel, though. Find zoning regulations that are working for other communities and see if that's not what we need to start with.
Certainly, certainly.
I mean-
Basically, that's what I said earlier. You know, if he comes back to us with all the stuff that we've told him, and he says, folks, I took everything into consideration, but I'm saying it's going to take us 6 months to a year to accomplish what you want, then we have to stand by and not interfere and say, where's the process? We've been 2 months, we haven't heard anything. If he says it's going to take that, then stand behind him. Let him do his job, and then he can come back to us when he feels he's ready. And don't be pushing stuff on him. We told you 2 months ago, where you at? If he says 6 to 8 months, let's stand by his decision, and he can update us as he feels it's necessary. Okay, but that's been one of our problems. We keep going to stuff and we say, I haven't heard anything about this. I mentioned it 2 months ago. I haven't heard anything about that. I mentioned this here. Let's get off of that bandwagon. And if somebody says it's going to take this, let's let them do their job. They can come back and give us updates as to where the process is going.
Okay.
I can live with that.
I feel comfortable to say, yeah, look into this, let's go forward with this.
Okay, let me also.
Go ahead.
Let me also indicate, the next time I'm going to be able to come back to council, I think is going to be in January, because I think you're running out of study sessions for the balance of calendar year 2019. And I know I had already signed up for a day in January to come before you with revisions to our PDD ordinance. So I will use that same meeting to give you an update as to where I am with potential modifications to Title 16, and then follow that on with potential modifications to Title 17.
Well, also, Patrick, I think they or we would need to know, what do you need? And we're committed to supply that. Now, a new car isn't in the mix. No, I'm just kidding. But no, you're the pro. You need to tell us, because you have other things to do. This is something, but you have other things to do. And that, you need to say, hey, I need this, this, and this, and we will try our best to provide that for you. Is that okay?
So
Agreeable?
just a couple of things. So
Yeah.
I'm going to add on to Frank's timeline. I've done this in several communities, 2 years. And it's going to be a lot of work sessions. We're going to want a lot of input from you. We're going to work through things like, it's going to be like the riverfront zoning process, but longer. The other thing I want to say is, I think my #1 recommendation is to combine them into one title. So I just want to be prepare you for that. To get rid of the weird dichotomy between planning commission and council, where planning commission is approving subdivision regulations and council is dealing with zoning, it will be one land use code. That's going to be my recommendation. So I just want to prepare you for that. So
That's back to the simple process.
Well, and then would you then give us that in writing? Because we're missing people. And so we're going to encumber the new council people's time. But
sure, I can update all of council on what we talked about tonight.
Okay, and
Sure.
fair enough. And Patrick, we will stand behind you and we will give you that because I think it needs to be done. And we appreciate that.
I'm more than happy to undertake this,
Okay.
as long as you appreciate there will be a duration associated with
Well-
this, and that will require some patience.
That's, just keep in touch. And I think what we've done here, while I made some remarks that I probably will regret in the future, but go ahead. I think that's what we're saying here. I know that's what we're saying here, as I understand that, because Catherine's point's well taken. I've been in the planning commission for 6 years. I've been here now almost 4. That's almost 10 years, and we keep putting this on and putting that on. And when I'm doing it, I'm doing the same thing, like, well, how does that fit over here? And I couldn't do that. And so when I read this, I was getting more and more thinking, like, I was part of some of this. This doesn't seem like, really? So, okay. Okay.
Yeah, just quickly, you bring up the riverfront thing, but she essentially didn't take the current zoning or the toolbox and redo it. She built a new one.
And
That's what we need to do.
I would definitely not be surprised if we chuck Title 16 in its entirety.
Chuck it.
And start from scratch. I wouldn't be surprised.
16,
The zoning's a little more
17,
complicated
12,
because it's,
8.
well, the zoning's a little more complicated because it's canyon specific. So there are things we're going to want to keep in there.
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, with your blessing, I think, the goal of the riverfront zoning was to create a shell to use, a concept to use.
Right.
And we would move forward using that concept and shell to develop the new title.
Let's go for it.
Yep, I agree with Frank. Let's do it.
Yep.
Okay?
So this is getting forwarded to council.
Yeah,
No,
I
Planning
think
Commission.
the planning commission, this is what we got.
Planning Commission.
You know,
Yeah, there
you
you go. See, can't
You
even figure out where
can't,
it's
yeah,
going.
let's do that. Patrick, let's do
Okay.
that, okay?
Okay.
And then, to clarify, you're gonna find some financial support to get this done.
We will look and,
Who's
I,
Council.
We, the city.
It's good.
we from financial support is me and Tammy.
All right, okay,
What's what we hired her for? Come on, sharpen your pencil.
I'm
Yeah.
serious.
Here's a pencil.
But we'll also sit down with Patrick and Dina and look at the resources
Sure.
that are needed. And I mean, we're not just going to put a number out there. We actually need to sit down and take a look at what the plan is and what resources are actually needed
Yeah,
to put together a game plan.
The resource
And I-
question can really only be answered once we get our arms around the scope of
Okay.
what we're doing.
Oh, fair enough. And
And I trust this to you because you're new. With all due respect, I think this would be next to impossible for a tenured employee because they're mired in the muck. But you don't seem to have gotten there yet, so I think you have the opportunity to get us out of it.
You're muckless.
And I am muckless.
Muckless.
And I
I'll try to
trust you
take that as
because
a
you sat
compliment.
through last night until we were gone.
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
I do have actually two
Go
specific
ahead.
comments I'd like to make on page, under intent, which is page 2, and number 4. Give you all time to get there. So,
Page 2?
Intent.
Page,
So it's about
Oh, okay.
3 pages back. Under intent, number 4, create livable neighborhoods that foster a sense of community and reduce dependency on private vehicles. What the heck do we want to do that for?
No, I will tell you that is standard language when you get one of these model codes. And as I understand it, one of my predecessors many years ago basically took this wholesale from, I think, the Division of Local Affairs or Department of Local Affairs program that drafted model land use codes. And that's how it ended up there.
Sure.
That's
Get rid of it.
standard language that gets dropped into these things. And it's one of these things that, well, you can decide as a community, do you want that statement in there or not?
Right, understand. So I would recommend that we delete number 4 when you take it to the planning commission, as I hear some strong objections to that or something.
I'm open.
And on page 24, it's a similar comment. Under C, sketch plan review criteria, number 1E, echo, the development promotes a multimodal transportation network. And it's a
You
similar
can see
concept.
this is a very popular code in the Denver area.
Well, why don't we just
Working
say,
real well there, either.
why don't we just outlaw vehicles within the city limits? I mean, let's go all the way.
The streets won't get tore up.
Yeah, streets, yeah, right. Gee whiz.
I thought a multimodal was made in England and they didn't start all the time.
So anyway, those are actually maybe a
No,
couple
I-
of pet peeves.
I believe I understand what you're saying in terms of some of these generic comments that get dropped into all of these model codes aren't applicable to Canyon City, and we just need to be cognizant of them when we come across them.
Okay.
In the end, whatever's in there, you put in there.
No,
Not
I
you took
anticipate if we're gonna do this, it will be a start from scratch
It's got a
effort.
great, I agree, good.
Okay, that's what we're agreeing to. And
Right, I
we,
agree.
if it happens any other way, Patrick, I will still be a citizen of Canyon City. I will come in and quote to
Yeah,
them
if
as
I'm
your,
not reelected, I'll.
as your
I'll
support, okay?
Come in here
Well,
and
thank
sit
you.
down there behind you.
Thank you for your patience, I appreciate that. So,
Yes, ditto.
are we ready to move, so you're gonna go ahead and, take that to planning commission then,
Yes.
okay? All right, let's move on to number C, annexation procedures.
So, on the guise of deregulation, you will be happy to know that this proposal is intended to strip away a bunch of unnecessary items that are currently in our annexation procedures and move us more uniformly in line with what Colorado revised statutes have to say on the subject of how you process an annexation, what qualifies for annexation, and what you do with the annexation. So with this ordinance, what we're doing is effectively taking what is 9 pages in the current annexation procedures and stripping it down to about 2.
Can you make
Now.
it one? Sorry.
We could take the spaces out and just make it this.
We could probably remove all of the paragraph breaks.
Actually, it probably is one outside the ordinance. If you take the ordinance language away, it probably
Okay.
is one.
Now, the new feature in this that I want to alert you to, I shouldn't say new, but it's a clarified feature, has to do with annexation agreements. The process of annexation for a municipality is one where you don't have to have this rational nexus about, well, if a road is required because your development is creating the need for the road, you have to negotiate that into a development agreement. Under an annexation agreement, a municipality can ask for anything because the annexation has to be on mutually consensual terms. I have seen municipalities in the Denver area that ask for 4-lane bridges over highways as a condition of annexation. I'm not saying Canyon City would ever do something like that, but that is how powerful a tool annexation is for a municipality under the guise of an annexation agreement. So what this does is make sure that tool remains in our toolbox should the city ever need to use it in the future.
And an annexation agreement is subject to going through the planning commission, or what does that generate?
The annexation agreement, under the terms of annexation, normally what occurs is the change in a municipal boundary is solely at the discretion of the elected officials, whatever you call the elected
Okay.
board, okay?
Okay.
Planning commission will evaluate the zoning component associated with that, because you can't annex land without zoning it. But
Right.
the change in a municipal boundary is solely at the discretion of the board.
Okay, got it, okay.
And just to kind of build upon Patrick's statements, now annexation does go through planning commission with the rezone. And so that's been eliminated. That is not the way the Annexation Act under state law reads. So it's like Patrick's saying, it is solely up to the governing body of the entity.
Yeah, and that's one of those that got filtered in, and it was an add-on somewhere along the way, and we don't know why it's there, but it's there. That's why I asked, because I remember sitting there and they were coming through, and I felt that was I felt it was an elected official thing, and, but what do I know? Good, okay. Any questions?
And if you give us the thumbs up on this, this will also go to planning commission for recommendation before it comes back to the council for 2 readings.
Thumbs up. I'm okay.
I mean, I haven't read it, but again, is it simpler?
Far simpler.
Can it get simpler?
No, not under state law.
Not without doing some things that, kind of avoid state
Okay.
law on the subject.
Then if it can't get any simpler, then do it. I'm serious. I mean, that's my approach, is I'm done with this Title VIII.
Okay, Mr. Meisner's done, but it's only a page and a half, Jim.
Well, I'm just saying that if it can be simpler than what it is, make it simple.
We
I think-
can't do
Okay.
things in a way that the state statute would say, no, that's a
Okay.
no-no.
We need to do those things. That's the other part that we expect out of you, is that,
Okay,
and you,
okay.
and
Well-
the guy beside you there with the big.
So we got thumbs up on that, Patrick, and appreciate
Yes.
it, so gonna play. Thanks, everyone. I hope I didn't stir too many pots, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. I will not be here tomorrow night. My wife and I are going to be leaving town. But I just wanted to say in terms of the discussion about signs in Dina's zoning proposal, I would caution us against getting wrapped around the axle. This is a unique set of standards. We're not going to be applying it by, just by familiarity to other portions of the city without some serious thought. I think that they're tight standards, and so that, I just wanted to share that, since I won't have a chance to say that tomorrow.
I'll try to honor that, John. I understand
Okay.
what you're saying.
Again, Patrick, thank you. We appreciate it, and I guess we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you all.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
Be patient with us.